Look at this, hundreds and thousands of this sun-loving plant that comes up on its own. Also has such a great love for water. Just growing wild. In a truck bed? Look at this, tomatillos all over the place. And something that may be turning into a ladybug at some point. Hi everybody, it's Robbie from Southern California, and today I'm just going to talk about tomatillos because I absolutely love them and how they grow here on our property in Southern California. Now this is the truck bed, and the truck bed I've got all kinds of squash in here. I've got shark fin melon, I grew some butternut, I had zucchini, I had all different things in here. But the tomatillos are now taking over. Can you see them? Now this is a purple type variety, though I will say I did not plant it from seed myself. It comes up each year, and being that we have both varieties, they could hybridize. So some of them will be a light purple and some of them will be a dark purple and some will be green. I let them do their thing, and that's how we end up with hundreds and hundreds all over the place. Look at this. Is that amazing? Now, yes, they can get hornworms, just like tomatoes. Not usually as bad, but if you don't have tomatoes, the moth will find it and the hornworms will live on them as well. I don't see any right now, though I see signs, but I've got a hawk that's been coming down, and he can sit on rebar, and when he sits up there, he can pick them off. So we know that different birds will eat the hornworms. Now, let me get back to tomatillos. Why I find them so different than tomatoes. Tomatoes we start in the spring here, and they grow everywhere. And not only that, but they'll go all through the fall into the winter once the plant is well established. Tomatillos, on the other hand, I'll start to see them peeking up. Like in the truck bed, when I planted it up with all the squash, I started to see the little tiny plants just starting to come up, and I just left them. Once the squash is getting towards the end, and we are now in the fall, so the squash plants will die back, except for zucchini that can go all winter here. That's when the tomatillos take over, and they grow quickly into a big bush, very much like determinate tomatoes. And look at this, they just load themselves up with fruit. Now, when they're ready to come off, you would tug them and they will fall right off, or they'll fall all over the floor. And then you can pick them up that way. Now, the reason I say they're unique is I can't get them to grow heavy fruit in the spring or summer. They seem to like fall. It seems like that is the time, all of them. Let's walk over here. This is where the ponds are, and this is my meadow. Again, another place. I did not plant tomatillos, but they're all through here, and they're starting to turn yellow. See how they're turning yellow, the leaves? They're pretty much done. These here, too, are the purple variety. Now, if I tug on them, then I would know they're done. See all through there? Can you see them all over the ground? Those are ready to be picked up and, well, basically harvested and done what I want to do with them. Now, what I do is I'll go through, and being that I don't see anything right here, here's one we could probably get. What I do is I pick them if they're ready, or pick them off the ground. See, there's a whole bunch on the ground here. And I can come back. I've been coming back every day and picking them up. See how purple they are? And I unwrap them. I take them in the house. I wash them. I unwrap them, dry them, freeze them on a tray in the freezer, and then I bag them up, and I have them all winter. They are so easy to freeze. You don't have to blanch them or do anything with them. But the reason I wanted to talk about them is if you're trying to get them growing in the spring and thinking, well, I'm going to have fruit and be able to make salsa early on, I can't do that here. Maybe you can, and that's great, but I cannot do that here at all. Here they have kind of a time, like a little time clock. It doesn't matter if they're the green variety. It doesn't matter if they're the purple variety. They turn into a great big bush, and then at the right time, they start to flower, and then they turn into fruit. Now, I've heard a lot of different things on pollinating. Little insects, little flies, the hoverflies go to them, but I think, and I do believe, they're wind pollinated, very similar to tomatoes. The other thing is, you don't have to have multiple plants growing to get fruit. I've got them growing on my deck, one single plant, and it will fill with fruit. It's just that they take time. And I think some people think you need 2 plants to get tomatillos. Well, we haven't had to have that. Gary had one plant in his garden and it just loaded up with tomatillos. I had one on the deck, loaded up with tomatillos. You don't need to have multiple plants for cross-pollination, but it needs the right time to fruit. Let's go take a look where I've got a few more. There's another tomatillo. Now these are green. You'll see there's no purple on them. See, they're pretty much all green. And when these come off, they're green inside. Both of them to me are the same. It doesn't matter. I have no real preference. I think the purple looks prettier and will have more maybe nutrients, but other than that, it's fine. I did not plant these. I don't even have to think about planting tomatillos. When they fall and hit the ground, whether it's a container or in a tote, if you don't see them, they're going to stay in their little fancy wrapping and they're going to sit there all winter. And come spring, the wrapping will start to break away. It will start to decay into the soil. And then all of a sudden in the middle of spring, when it starts to get really warm, you'll see the little plants. They'll kind of look like tomato plants in a way. They may not do anything but sit there real tiny for a long time. And when the weather gets right and the weather is warm, they just take off. Now, if I want to grow a tomatillo, let's say over here, I could just toss a couple in there and forget about it. Don't have to think about it. And when the time is right, they'll grow. That's how they grow in Southern California. How did they grow here? Well, I did have some here last year. And the other way is shifting soil. I take soil that has broke down in these totes and move them around. Sometimes there's another place I want to grow, you know, some nice plants and take some rich soil because I make my own soil. You know how I load it up with not just cardboard, but leaves and kitchen scraps and anything I've got, coffee grinds, all that. Even fish, frozen fish from this freezer, you know, something that wasn't good, or rotting fish, I should say. We did have some fish that was frozen. It was so bad. We ate a little bit that we ended up composting the rest. It was really bad. But the point is, you can compost all that. So I move soil around, and that's what causes tomatillos to grow. Now, are they invasive? No. If you don't want them, pick them, dig them back into the ground, compost them. I leave them. And the strongest plant, if like 100 of them come up because they have tiny seeds, the strongest plant will grow. And then you'll notice you don't have too many plants because it seems like they take over, they put something into the soil and they pretty much get rid of the others. On top of that, the small ones that don't grow, they get stunted for whatever reason, well, insects will come and eat those. Little things will get in there and take care of them, but the strongest plant protects itself and will grow. So, should you grow tomatillos if you want to make salsa? They're great for pickling. Think about it. My dad, when I was growing up, used to pickle green tomatoes. Tomatillos pickle great. They've got the same firmness as a green tomato, so you can pickle them. You can make salsa out of them. You can chop them up and put them in anything you're cooking. It's whatever you want to do with them. You can use them, well, I would wait until they're ready to, you know, you can use them at this stage, but they're going to taste better when they're ready to leave the plant. And see how they're really taut? They stay on there and they hang like little lanterns. Look at that. Aren't they beautiful? I think they're the most beautiful plant you can get. And when they're ready and they fall, that's when you collect them. And if you don't know, like here's one a little bit brown back there, bet you that's going to come right off. Yep, see how it just pops right off? And these are green inside. And this is really little. And it doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter. Green are good too. So freeze them. If you're not sure what you want to do with them, come winter, you're making tacos, you're making enchiladas, you want to make a fancy sauce, and you don't want to go buy them, and they're going to be expensive to go find in the winter. You'll have them in the freezer. Take them out, throw them in a food processor, maybe some tomatoes, some hot sauce, some tomatillos, onions, whatever you want to put in there, chop it up, and you've got a fabulous sauce with your own tomatillos that you grew. So remember, once you start growing them, they will pop up. If you're in an area that they like growing in, they're volunteers and they're doing their own thing, and you just kick back, take care of the rest of your garden and let them do their thing. So this is the tomatillo. You would take the skin off. Now you've got the tomatillo. And I'll show you the seeds inside. You can see how incredibly tiny they are. See how tiny the seeds are? Much smaller than tomato seeds. Now what I generally do when I collect the seeds is I just collect the whole fruit. I leave it with the wrapping, put it in a cup, and put it away. But that's it. And then I just leave it. And then come spring, it will be dried out. I cut them in half or leave them whole and just toss them in the yard. And once they're really ripe, I mean, you can collect the seeds and dry them and grow them, but I don't bother. So for a complete wrap up on how you grow tomatillos, make sure they get plenty of water. They do not like to be dried out. Tomatoes can get dried out, but not tomatillos. And that's basically it. The strongest tomatillo will survive. Keep it well watered. And don't forget, it's not going to produce fruit until the plant is completely done. It's like a determinate tomato, and then it will just set fruit. If it dries out even once, you could lose the entire plant. It doesn't like a lot of water. It doesn't want its feet wet, but it wants to be wet all the time. And here is some cabbage along with some tomatillos in here, and I'm pickling it right now. This is a container that Gary likes getting kimchi. The reason I like buying it is because they give you this neat jar where this pushes down everything under the water, the brine. Isn't that cool? And you know, it probably would cost me $3 or $4 to buy one of these, but I get the kimchi with it, and then when he's done with it, I can make my own. And those are tomatillos sitting in there with a little salt and dill and water and cabbage. And when that's done, it's only been a few days, we'll have our own pickled tomatillos. So with that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye. Oops.